Hello, friends. Glad to see you again. Pull up a chair because today, I've got a story that'll have you shaking your head and checking your own property lines twice. Let me just cut to the chase. The first time somebody accused me of stealing my own house, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Not some nervous titter, just an honest, out-of-body chuckle, because who gets accused of grand theft homestead by someone in an avocado green blazer and wedge sandals? She was standing at the foot of my driveway with a clipboard like it was a badge, and behind her stood a guy in a neon polo bright enough to flag down airplanes. You know the type. Folks who give themselves titles and expect you to play along. "You're trespassing," she says, all prim and proper, like my front porch swing was a threat to national security. "On community property." I just shook my head, gestured at my house, my paint-chipped, sunburned little place, and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, this isn't community anything." She took that as a challenge, writing something on her clipboard with such determination you'd think she was reporting a felony. "I'm Kendra, president of the High Lanes HOA. This is Mitch, our compliance chair." "Compliance," she said, like it was a four-letter word. "We've tried reaching you. Certified mail, welcome packets. You need to register, pay your dues, and take down that fence blocking the access path." Now, the so-called fence was a waist-high chain I strung up to keep folks from using my side yard as a shortcut. Unless weeds count as a public thoroughfare, the only path it blocked was the one to my trash cans. "I'm not in your HOA," I told her, holding up my phone where I'd saved my deed just for moments like this. "No covenants, no restrictions. Check twice. No HOA." Kendra's face glitched between confusion and full-on fury. "That's incorrect. The declaration covers this whole subdivision, and your lot is the eastern key. We need access." Mitch, not to be outdone, puffed up his chest. "You've created a hazard by blocking the trail." "That's not a trail," I said, trying to keep my cool. "That's my yard. That's my gate. And those are my weeds." But Kendra was thrilled now. "A gate? That means there was supposed to be a community easement here, a path from our parking lot to the nature trail. Apparently, I was the only thing standing between this HOA and their manifest destiny. I tried reasoning. "I paid for this house. I checked the title report. There is no easement." But Kendra, undeterred, announced, "We're holding a special meeting tonight. We'll vote to annex your property into the association." I actually laughed. You can't just vote someone else's house into your HOA like it's a potluck. That's not how property works. "Just wait," she said, smiling a practiced smile. "In the meantime, remove your chain." I let her repeat it, then politely declined. They stomped off, neon polo bobbing after avocado blazer, and I went inside to Google, just in case annexing by vibes was a thing. Spoiler, it's not. In the real world, property law cares more about paperwork than anyone's bossy attitude. I wish that was the end of it. But 2 days later, while I was wrestling a stubborn screw out of my porch, I heard a knock that was all business. 2 cops, one older, one rookie, stood at my door. And behind them, sure enough, Kendra and Mitch, peeking like tattling kids waiting for the teacher. "Morning," the sergeant said. "We're responding to a report from the HOA. They're claiming you're unlawfully occupying a residence and blocking community access." I handed over my deed and title, physical copies and all. No HOA, no easement. I bought this place fair and square. Kendra whipped out the HOA declaration, but it was for the other side of the street, and my lot wasn't listed. The sergeant calmly explained, "Ma'am, even if there's a dispute, it's civil. We can't remove someone from their own home because of an HOA claim." Kendra's cheeks turned red, but she insisted I was blocking emergency egress. "Supposed to be is not the same as is," I told her, and the cop agreed. "We're clearing this call. Don't call 911 for property disputes unless it's an emergency." That was that for now. But if you think HOA Karens give up easy, you've never met this crew. I started keeping records, photos of notices taped to my door, welcome packets demanding $1,200 in initiation fees, strangers wandering through my yard. I installed 3 security cameras and put up a polite sign asking folks not to cut through. For good measure, I dug up every recorded plat map I could find and highlighted, in neon, that my lot was not in the declaration. Paperwork beats bluster, remember that. A few days later, a new face wandered into my yard, tape measure swinging like a badge. "I'm Rory, Architectural Committee." We're laying out where the path will go so our contractor can cut your fence. The fence wasn't even mine. It belonged to my neighbor. You're not doing anything, I said, and asked him to leave. Public right-of-way, he tried. Nope, private yard. Step off, or I'm calling the cops. He retreated, muttering about being a good neighbor. My actual neighbor, Inns, a retired nurse with a backyard that smells like rosemary, brought over cookies and reassurance. They told us there'd be a path, but my husband checked the maps. Never saw anything official. Don't apologize for keeping your gate closed, she said, patting my arm. There's a big difference between what's nice and what's yours. Don't let them confuse you. Next thing I know, there's a bright orange violation notice pinned to my mailbox, assessing a $100 daily fine and threatening a lien for refusing lawful access. Addressed to occupant. They didn't even bother with my name. I called a real estate attorney named Laura who was as sharp as a tack and twice as blunt. She asked, "Do you have title insurance? Any recorded documents? Anyone enter your property after you told them not to?" Yes, yes, and yes. We start with a letter. If they don't back off, we file. And if they place a lien or call the cops again, we press charges for slander of title and false report. So now I'm spending money just to keep people from turning my yard into a hallway. Wild, right? I slept with one eye open. Every creak sounded like a meeting agenda. Then my camera caught a jogger ducking under my chain. "Hey," I called, adrenaline making my voice a little too loud. "This isn't a cut-through." The guy apologized. He'd been told it was a new shortcut. I put up another chain, a bigger sign, and started thinking about planting a thorny hedge. The HOA ignored Lara's letter. But Owen, who lives across from the HOA clubhouse and runs a landscaping business, dropped off a copy of the HOA meeting minutes. According to the minutes, they voted to annex my house and take immediate compliance action. I brought it to Laura. She just laughed. They can't annex a property by vote. They've documented their own attempt to cloud your title. 2 days later, a crew with a saw showed up, ready to cut a pedestrian gate in my fence. I came flying out, barefoot and furious. "If you so much as nick my property, you're trespassing and I will press charges." They left. Kendra called from her car. She wouldn't even get out, threatening me with fines and liens. I called Laura, who told me to hang tight, because most people cave at this point. "You're not most people," she said. Now I was on offense. I hired a surveyor named Tyven. Owen said, "This guy brings math to a knife fight." Tyven marked every corner, pulled strings across my yard, and stamped a brass tag with my lot number. "No recorded easement. This is your land," he said. I framed his map, posted the municipal code on trespass by my gate, and exhaled for the first time in weeks. That lasted all of 3 days. One afternoon, I heard the whine of a drone, and sure enough, Mitch was piloting it from the HOA lot, peeking right into my yard. I recorded every flight, documented every pass. Inns waved at it. Owen joked about bringing out his leaf blower, and I filed a police report. Not 911, just the non-emergency line. Meanwhile, Laura filed our complaint in civil court, asking for a declaratory judgment, a permanent injunction, and damages. When the process server delivered the papers to Kendra, she called me, voice shaking with fury. "This will not end well for you." "Votes don't change deeds," I said. "See you in court." The next morning, a city notice showed up about unauthorized gates, with an arrow pointing straight at my yard. I walked into the fire station, spoke to Captain Harlow, who confirmed, "No emergency egress here. No plans, no right-of-way." He wrote it out for me, on letterhead, signed and sealed. After that, code enforcement came by for an anonymous complaint. The officer took one look at my chain and gate and said, "This isn't a structure. You're fine." She even told me to document every time they posted anything on my mailbox, because that's a federal issue. I documented everything, not because I wanted a fight, but because I realized the HOA counted on people getting tired, giving up. I wasn't backing down. Then it got weird. Cars parked just across my driveway, close enough to send a message. Inns whispered that people were taking pictures of my yard at midnight with flashlights. The court hearing was online. The judge cut through it all. No recorded easement, no legal description, no claim. "Intent in a brochure is not a property right," she said, granting us a temporary injunction. That should have been it. But Kendra left a fake lien notice on my door. Laura called it slander of title, and unfair debt collection. I bought coffee for Sergeant Ward as a thank you. He just shook his head. Never had someone claim a stolen house the owner had a deed for. While mowing my grass, I met Cal, the retired project manager from the original developer. He emailed Laura. No easement was ever recorded. The city made us remove the path for drainage. That was the final nail. 2 weeks later, a certified letter landed. Terms future boards couldn't wriggle out of. The HOA had to record a non-association affidavit, pay my legal fees, issue retractions, and apologize. The city got their notice, too. Mitch and Kendra went through live governance training. Money for all this came from the HOA's budget. Bye-bye, pool chairs. Kendra got recalled. Mitch resigned. Shelby, the new president, introduced a new boundaries and courtesy policy. Ask first, and only if you have the right to ask. The new walkway went in, entirely on HOA land. Owen planted shrubs, put up a sign. Please stay on walkway. Private yards are for private picnics. Shelby knocked to say thanks and promised to handle any more trouble. I'm not against paths, I told her. Just don't draw them through my living room. A plain envelope arrived. I owe you an apology. I thought agreement could make it right. That was mistaken. I'm sorry for the drone, the calls, the strain. Signed, K. Life went blessedly ordinary after that. My cameras caught raccoons, not neighbors. I planted a hedge where the chain had been. Title insurance updated my file. On a forum, someone asked, can we annex a lot? The top answer was, no. Don't. And don't call the police unless you want to embarrass yourself. Punishment came as lessons, not revenge. Checks cut to the one they tried to steamroll. A drone at the next yard sale, marked, learned my lesson. Even Mitch's training certificate might as well have said, don't do that again. One night, a jogger nodded at the new path. Good walkway, he said, breathing hard. Took the long way, but it's nice. Worth it, I replied, settling into my porch swing, consent decree asleep in a drawer, hedge growing politely, and finally, the neighborhood just quiet. Now, here's my question for you. What would you have done? Was I stubborn or just standing up for what's right? Where's the line between neighborly and naive? Drop your take in the comments, because I want to hear your wildest HOA stories, and if you've ever had to fight for your own slice of peace. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's keep this debate going. See you soon.